Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Okay, so it's 10 a.m. in Europe. So if you are watching this webinar, you're either in Europe or in the middle of the night in US or somewhere in the east side of the world. I am Serena Di Cecilia, and today I will give you an introduction to FlowJo version 10.10. So I will start by sharing my screen. Meanwhile, I want to remind you that this webinar is recorded, so you can always rewatch the recording later on. And I also want to remind you that if you do have questions, please do not hesitate to write your questions to type your questions in the Q&A box. I can see the Q&A box while I'm presenting, so if you do have questions, please type it in there. Okay, so who am I? I'm Serena Di Cecilia. You may have probably seen some of my webinars. I'm the Senior European Application Specialist for FlowJo, and I cover the European area. So in case you have any question, please feel free to send me an email. Here on the screen, you see two email addresses. They both are connected to my Outlook, so absolutely feel free to email me to the one that you prefer. As you know, FlowJo is part of BD, so both of them work. And absolutely feel free to send me an email in case you have any problem with FlowJo or any issue, any question. If you need troubleshooting something, I'll be super happy to help. Okay, so first thing first, what are we going to do today, and what is FlowJo and where you can find FlowJo? So first thing, you can find FlowJo on the website. If you are here on this training today, it means that you either registered through some of the social media or you registered through the website. The FlowJo website is divided into different areas. You can see right here, we do have the FlowJo area, the BD Research Cloud area, which is our cloud environment for collaboration. So if you are curious about BDRC, I strongly invite you to create and start collaborating with your colleagues by using this platform right here. The CKIC area, which is our area for single-cell sequencing analysis, and then the FlowJo Exchange, which is an accessory area for extra tools for FlowJo, and then the FlowJo University. So FlowJo is a software for flow cytometry data analysis, and it's a desktop application, which means that you can download FlowJo on your computer and you can use it. Okay, so you don't need any extra installation besides just downloading the software on your computer. To download FlowJo, you can just access the download area on the website right here and just click on download FlowJo. When you are here, you will find two different installers, one for Mac and one for Windows, depending on which is your machine. So you will choose the one that fits your computer. Okay. In order to use FlowJo, you will need a license. So there are several kind of licenses that you can access, but please remember that you can always have access to a free trial just by clicking on the free trial right here. This allows you to use or to get a free trial for 30 days where you can analyze any kind of data. So take your own data that you got from your instrument or from your experiment and just analyze it right there. You will just need to fill in these fields right here, and the office will be happy to activate a 30 days license for you. The second thing that I want to mention regarding the FlowJo website is the Learn area. So as I mentioned before, this webinar is recorded. So in case you're missing something, there's no problem at all, because if you go under Learn, you will find the webinars tab right here. And in the webinars tab, you can either sign up for the upcoming webinars. So we held monthly webinars for basic and advanced features of FlowJo. Not always are at this time of the day. So usually we held them at 1 a.m. Pacific time. So it's 7 p.m. for us in Europe. But in case you miss any of them, you can always go all the way down to the recorded webinars to the bottom of the page right here and just rewatch them. So as you can see, we have different webinars with different topics. And if you want to deep dive into a specific topic, you will just find that webinar specific for you for your needs. Under the Learn area, you will also find the FlowJo University area, the FlowJo University tab, which is a repository of short videos on all the features or different features for FlowJo, BD Research Cloud, or SeatGeek. So if you access FlowJo, for example, you will find all the different topics right here. And if you just navigate on any of them, I don't know, maybe QC, an organization, on the right side, you will find all the different videos connected to that. So for example, if I want to use groups in FlowJo and I don't remember how to do that, you can just click on that and you will find this short video of 5 to 10 minutes max that it's pointed to that specific action. And finally, the most important thing that I always remind people is that we do have a documentation available. So under the Learn area, you can navigate to FlowJo Software Help. And right here, you will find a documentation with all the information regarding FlowJo, the actions, the features, everything that you can do in FlowJo is listed right here. So if you don't remember how to do something, you can either watch a webinar, watch a video, or just look for it within this tab right here. So for example, if I type groups and hit search, everything related to that topic will come out and I can just click on any of them. These are hyperlinks. So if I want to create a new group or edit a group, I will just click on that and I will find all the instructions step by step with screenshots. So you can do that exactly on your computer and on your data. Okay, so if you are interested in FlowJo Social Life, FlowJo has a Twitter account, LinkedIn account, Instagram, Facebook, everything. The only thing that we do or that FlowJo shares on these accounts is basically what's coming next, if there is a new webinar coming up, or if there is a new event near you, and so on. So feel free to follow FlowJo on social medias if you want. And finally, I want to highlight that we do have available a technical support. You can contact them at flowjo@bd.com. The technical support is located in the US West Coast, so there will be some delays compared to Europe if you are based in Europe. But they will always be happy to help, to answer your questions, to troubleshoot, and to connect with you. Okay, so as this is an introduction to FlowJo, I will walk you through the FlowJo workspace, and then we will give a look at the samples, and then we will import our data and create groups and keywords, and then we will go through the graphical window, how to add statistics, and finally create a complete report and a table that we can work with. Okay, so first thing first, let me open up my FlowJo. So I have FlowJo on my screen right now, and I'm using a portal account, which is based on username and password. So the only thing that I need to do is insert my username and my password right here, and then sign in. When you open up FlowJo, you will see that there is a white page. This is called workspace, and it's divided into 3 main areas. We have the top area, which is the activity bar, where you can have access to all the different activities within FlowJo. You will see that if you navigate under FlowJo or file or edit or workspace, the actions underneath are changing. Similar actions are gathering in the same tab. So we have the statistical tab or the keywords tab or the algorithms tab and so on. The second area, it's called the group area and will include always by default 2 groups, which are the all samples group and the compensation group. These groups cannot be removed or edited in terms of names and will include specific samples. So the all samples group will include all the samples that you will load into the workspace, while the compensation group will include all the compensation controls if you have any in your experiment. And finally, in this area, we will also find the new groups that we will create that can mirror basically our experiment setup. And finally, down here, we will find the samples and gating strategy area, which is basically where we have access to the samples and where we can see and create the gating strategy. Okay, all right. So I will pause for a second if there are questions, but I see there are no questions for the moment in the Q&A box. So I will start by showing you which are the samples that we will analyze today. Don't be scared if you see that are many samples or something like that. Just imagine that you are doing exactly the same things with your own experiment. So try to translate whatever you see today to your own project, to your own experiment setup. So the point of this training is this webinar is to show you what you can do within FlowJo, and then you can adapt that to your own needs and to your own experiment. Okay, so the data that we have today, it's a pretty common experiment. It's a phosphoflow and intracellular cytokine staining when we thaw and rest cryopreserved human PBMCs overnight, and then we stimulate with PMA plus inomycin for 2 hours. We did the first staining for surface antigens, and then we stimulate again. So there's a second stimulation with PI for other 20 minutes. Fixation and permeabilization, and then stain for intracellular antigens. So we basically have 2 different stainings just to be able to mirror any kind of experiment, okay? So you have surface staining and intracellular staining, and we have 2 different stimulations to have more conditions to show. Okay, so the point of this experiment is actually to see how the production of intracellular markers is changing over the different conditions of stimulation. As you may know, intracellular markers may change conditions or may change the level of expressions during stimulations or after stimulation. So we want to see how we can get there and what we can have, what we can see. Okay. So in the experiment setup, I have 3 different sets of samples, one full stain samples, which are basically our PBMCs coming from live donors. Then we also have some controls, which are our FMOs, which are basically the fluorescence -1. So each tube has all the markers except for one that we will be using for our control. And then we also have compensation controls in this experiment. But for compensation, I invite you to check any of the other webinars that we have on our website, where the topic is really covered completely, because otherwise in 1 hour, I couldn't cover all of it. Okay, so compensation will not be covered in this training today. So once you perform your experiment, you will be ready to load your samples into the workspace. So ideally, you stain your samples, you went to the instrument, you processed your samples, and then you export the data. You will have your data as FCS files, which are basically flow cytometry standard files, and that's what you can load within FlowJo. So once you have your files, you have several options to load them into FlowJo. The first one is just a drag and drop of the samples or the folder within the workspace. I have it right here on my screen on the left side. It's called PFICS, that stands for phosphoflow and intracellular cytokine staining. And you can either drag and drop this folder into the workspace, or you have a second option, which is under FlowJo, you can just select Add Samples right here. When you click on Add Samples, you will have two options. One, add samples from a location, and a second option, which is add samples from BD Research Cloud. As I was mentioning before, BD Research Cloud is our cloud environment that can help you also to store your data. You can create a free account to access BD Research Cloud. So if you want to try it out, I just invite you to do that. As I mentioned, you can have a free account to use it, so just check it out. And you will also have tooltips on how to use it, which is super funny. Okay, so today I will cover how to load data from a location on your computer. So I can just select Add Samples from here. And FlowJo will ask me, where are my samples located? So my samples are on the desktop, and I have a full folder called PFICS, phosphoflow and intracellular staining, and I can just select Choose. Now you will see that in all my samples group, I have all of my samples, a lot of them, 46 samples. We are not going to analyze all of them, don't worry. Then I have my compensation group that automatically included my compensation controls because I had them in my experiment. But if you don't have them, this group will be empty. And then I have a new group that has been created that has the same name of the folder that I just loaded. Now, the point of having groups is to, as I mentioned before, mirror our experiments. As I do have 3 different sets of samples, I want to create 3 different groups for them. One for compensation, which is already here. Then I will create one group for my full stains and one group for my FMOs. So there are several options how you can create a group or edit a group in FlowJo. There is a manual option where I can just select the group and then right click on it. And I can choose Edit Group Properties right here. And this will allow me to change the name of this group. This will be Domers or Full Stain. Okay, then I can, now FlowJo is asking me to save the workspace because I have the auto saving active within my FlowJo. So I will just click save. Okay, and then I can assign a role to this group. This can be my test group or my control group or my replicate group and so on. This is okay to be my test group. And I can just click apply changes and close. Now, as you see, I just changed the name of the group, but the point is to have in this group only the full stain samples. So manually, what I can do, I can just select everything that I don't need as my compensation controls or my FMOs from this group, and just hit backspace or cancel on my keyboard. FlowJo will ask me, are you sure you want to delete these files? Yes, I'm sure, because I'm only deleting them from this group. Indeed, you see that I still have them under my all samples group. Okay, so now I have one group with my full stain samples, and then eventually I may want to create another group for my FMOs. So to create a group, you can just go under FlowJo and select Create Group. This will be my FMOs and can be my controls group, okay? And then I also do have an automatic way to create groups where FlowJo can recognize the name within my files. There is a specific video under the FlowJo University where I show step-by-step how to create groups. So if you want to know, let's say if you want to see a slower video on that, you can check the FlowJo University. So to do this in an automatic way, I can tell FlowJo to look at the name of the file in a way that he will automatically insert in the FMOs group only the files that in their name contains the word FMOs. To do that, I can select as a keyword the file name. So I can choose $FIL. This way, FlowJo will scan all the file names and will include in this group only the files that in their name, for example, contains a specific word that can be FMO. So now I can create the group and close. Now, as you see, I have one group for compensation, one group for my FMOs, and one group for my full stain. So the entire point was to create groups that could mirror our sample setting, sample sets, and our experiment, and that was done. Okay. So next thing I can do, or I invite you to do in case you are working with multiple donors or multiple conditions or multiple time points, is to add as many informations as you can to your files. Now in FlowJo, you cannot edit the file names. As you see here, these are the file names that my colleagues assigned to the samples, and these are extremely nicely named. So I do know for each FCS file, which is the donor ID, which is the stimulation condition, and which is the well ID where these files were located. Sometimes you may not be this lucky. Maybe you have rush, you are not that into the experiment in that moment. You just go to the instrument and you name your files 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go back to your bench and you don't know anymore what is what. So this is not a problem. You have two options. One, you go back to the instrument and rename your files and then re-export them. Or you can add extra informations to your files within FlowJo. These extra informations are called keywords. And there is also a video on keywords within the FlowJo University. Okay. Now, let's say that I want to add a keyword for my donor IDs, okay? Let's imagine that my files were not named so nicely. So what I can do under FlowJo, I can click on Add Keyword right here, and this can be donor ID. Oops, okay. So instead of working with so many donors, let's work just with 2 donors. That would be easier for us and faster, okay? Now I have donor 1 and donor 2. I want to add this donor ID extra information to my workspace. So I can do that manually, just typing donor 1, and then I go down and I still type donor 1, donor 1, donor 1, because for each donor I have 4 different conditions of stimulation. And this is a manual way, or there is an automatic way to assign keywords values to your files. If you go under workspace, you can use the create keyword value series right here. This will automatically assign a series of values to all your samples in that group. So my values in this case will be donor 1 and donor 2. So what I can click on create keyword value series, and this will be a keyword that can be donor 1 and donor 2. Now, FlowJo will fill 8 values, which is correct because in this group I only have 8 samples. But then I will tell FlowJo, so in these rules right here up on my screen, I will tell FlowJo to use each value actually 4 times before changing to the next one, because I have 4 samples coming from each donor. And if you have any doubts, you will see underneath there is a generated series. So you will see what FlowJo will do on your workspace. If you see that you cannot click OK, you can just go, you can realize that FlowJo is asking you, which is the keyword where I want to add this value. So the keyword is donor ID. Okay, so now we have added a new information to our workspace. Even if we did not have this information in the file name, now we know which is donor 1 and which is donor 2. And you can go on with these keywords for your time point, for your condition of stimulation, and so on. So I strongly recommend you to set your workspace the best way possible, because this will streamline your analysis at the end, and you can create a really full report, which is ordered, neat, clean, and really nice to show. Okay, so The next thing that I'm going to do, it's either add a second keyword for my stimulation condition. For example, I can add another keyword for my stim condition. Okay, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or again, I can create a series of values for this that will be condition 1, oops, condition 2, condition 3, and condition 4. Just be careful with the rules, because this time FlowJo will fill 8 values, and I will tell FlowJo to use each value 1 time before changing to the next one, which is correct. I have 1 of each conditions for each donor, but then I will tell FlowJo to start over from the first one every 4 samples. So I will use each value once, and then it will start again from the first one. So if I click OK, now I see right here, I have my keywords. So I have my donor ID keyword and I have my stimulation condition keyword. So now my samples are well defined, are divided into groups, have their own keywords, and I can know exactly which sample is what and to which group it belongs. So I'm now ready to open up a plot. So to open up a plot, you can just double click on the sample name and you will have a graphical window right here. Okay. On the top left corner, you will find all the tools to create a gate. When you open up a plot, FlowJo will show you by default physical parameters. So you can see right here on my y-axis, I have my side scatter. On my x-axis, I have my forward scatter. So I can start by selecting my cells and choosing one of the gating features that I prefer. So for example, I can go for the ellipse gate, which is the 4th icon right here. And just by holding down my mouse, I can generate a gate around my population. Okay, FlowJo will suggest you on the first gate, whenever you have physical parameters side versus forward, that these are lymphocytes. Of course, not everyone is working with lymphocytes, so please remember that you can always change the name, okay, of the gate and just click OK. So now you see I have my lymphocytes Serena right here and the percentage of cells in it, in this gate. To create the second gate, you can just double click inside the first one. So if I double click inside my gate, I will see the gated population and I can start changing the axis to create new gates, okay? So for example, I now want to isolate my single cells. So I can plot my forward area versus forward high. And I could use, in this case, for example, a polygon gate. The polygon gate will allow me to have more freedom to move around my population and to create a gate precisely. So I can just start by clicking the mouse. You can change the direction, okay? And every time that FlowJo will see plotted physical parameter height versus area will suggest you that these are single cells, which is actually correct right now. Then, of course, you can move your gate, you can make it bigger, smaller. If you see there are these small square right here, these are the points where you can, that you can edit, that you can make bigger or smaller, just to adjust to your population, okay? So then I'm going to create my third gate and isolate my live cells. I have a dead parameter right here. So ideally all cells that express these are dead. So I'm gonna take all the ones that do not express this marker right here by using a rectangle gate, which is the second icon. This will be my live. Okay, and while you are creating the gating strategy, you see that on the screen, on the workspace, you see the hierarchical gating strategy coming up, okay? Within my live cells, I then want to select my DR versus CD3 population. So let's remember what are these. These are PBMCs. So we want to get to the lymphocytes and see within our CD8 populations how intracellular markers are changing after stimulation. In this case, I have several options to create a gate. I could also choose the pencil gate, which is this pencil right here, where you can literally throw a gate around the population. But as you can see, I'm pretty bad with this, okay? I never get it right, but this is my own problem. It's like my own issue, okay? So the pencil gate or the auto gate, okay? The auto gate is this icon with a bin, like a bin icon. And you can see that when you use the auto gate, the gate will be created automatically based on density. So the more dense is the population from the red to blue, from red to blue, it's more dense to less dense. So the more dense is the population, the smaller will be the gate, the less dense is the population, the bigger will be the gate to include all the events or as many events possible, okay? I'm a fan of the rectangle gate, so I will just proceed with the rectangle gate, but you please be precise with your gates and choose the one that you prefer. Okay, now these are my CD3 cells, and finally, I just want to, within my CD3, which are my lymphocytes, I want my T cells, I want my CD4 and CD8. When you are right here, you can have also other options to create your gates. You could choose, for example, a quad gate, which is the third icon, where you can divide the area into 4 different quads. If you want to delete a gate, you can just click on the gate itself and hit cancel or backspace on your keyboard. Or you could use a curly quad that will take in account the spread of the cells, or you could use a spider where you can fix the center and then adjust the axis. Okay, you can then move the center as well. So depending on your needs and what you are looking for, you will choose the kind of gate that better fits your data. Okay, so again, I'm a fan of the rectangle gate, so I will just go for the rectangle gate. This is my CD4, and this will be my CD8 population. Now, what we see here, or the way this plot is shown, it's called pseudo color. So as I mentioned before, it's based on density, shows you from red to blue, the more dense areas and the less dense areas. But you can always change the visualization of the plot. If you do not prefer to go for the pseudo color, you can change this by going on to the options right here underneath and select, for example, a contour plot, where you can choose the level of contouring. You can increase or decrease the level of contouring, show the outliers, and eventually change the color. Or you can choose a density plot, which is really similar to pseudo color, but it's black and white, while in this case it's red and white, or we can make it black and white. You can show the outliers or not, and you can smooth it or not. Or you can choose, for example, a dot plot, which is the one that we are mostly used to. For the dot plot, you can increase or decrease the number of events that you see on the plot right here by changing this number. By default, it starts by showing you 8,000 events, but you can increase it or decrease it. And of course, even in this case, you can change the color. Or you can visualize it as a histogram. Keep in mind that when you look at it as a histogram on a graphical window, you will only see one marker at the time. As we see here, we see the negative and positive for CD8, while before we were looking at CD4 and CD8. So if you're looking at a co-expression, probably this is not the best way to show your data, okay? A dot plot or a pseudo color will be way more useful than this, okay? So let's go back to our pseudo color right here. And now we have our gating strategy created. Okay, now I have my lymphocytes, my single cells, my live, CD3, CD4, and CD8. Now, this gating strategy can actually be applied to the entire group or to all of my samples in this group. I do need to analyze this data with the same gating strategy. So you have two options, up to you. You can go on to the next sample and start everything from scratch. Okay, start analyzing the next sample with the same gating strategy, restart creating the gates, or you can take the gating strategy from your lymphocytes to the CD8. Oops. Okay. And you can just drag and drop the full selected items, okay, the full gating strategy onto the group. Now you see that all the samples in this group have the same gating strategy. So if I want to check how are the gates within the rest of the samples, I can just open up a plot. Now I'm looking at the first donor, first condition. Within my CD3 gate, I have CD4 and CD8, but if I scroll or if I move on to the next sample by clicking this green arrow right here, I can see exactly the same gates on my next sample. And in case I need, I can change them, I can modify them, so on. Okay, based on your needs, this will make your analysis quite faster. In case, of course, you are analyzing all the samples with the same gating strategy. Ideally, if you're running an experiment and you have multiple samples, the settings should be the same for all of your samples. Okay. All right. So what's next? We also did have FMOs in our data, which are, as I mentioned before, fluorescence -1 controls. So these controls can help us to set the gates for the positive population. So basically, they help us distinguish where the negative population ends and where the positive population ends. Specifically, are really helpful when we have some markers that are difficult to define when we are in a condition of stimulation, for example, when their expression is changing. While it's quite easy to define, I don't know, where is the line that defines where CD4 is negative and where CD4 is positive, because it's constantly expressed. It's harder to define it when markers are expressed over different conditions of stimulation. So FMOs can help us for that. In this case, what we can do in an easier way, since we will need the same gating strategy even for our FMOs, because are nothing more than cells with stained with all the markers except for one, we can take the same gating strategy and just drag and drop it onto the FMOs group. In this case, even the FMOs have the same gating strategy. And if I go on, and this is the tip I want to give you, if I go on edit and collapse all, I can just see the full names of the samples and I can scroll down easier among them. So I can take the FMO that does not contain interferon gamma, as you see here, FMO no interferon gamma. And within my CD8 population, I can plot CD8 versus interferon gamma. Now, in this tube, I don't have expression of interferon gamma. I don't have markers. I don't have antibodies to see interferon gamma. And this is my negative, let's say true negative population. So whenever I add something to mark or to stain for interferon gamma, or when I have interferon gamma expression in my cells, if that's positive, will come up right here. So I can create my gate for interferon gamma. Okay. Now you see this gate on the workspace on the left side of the screen. You see that interferon gamma, the name of the gate, it's black, meaning that I made some changes. This is something that it's not fully included in the group strategy or in the group gating strategy. So FlowJo is indicating that with a different color. So if I want, I can just right click and copy this analysis to the entire group. So all the samples will have the same gate, okay? Then if I need, as I do, I can take my, let's do this. I can take my interferon gamma gate that I just created and I can move it under my CD8 in my full stain. What happened at this point? If I move on to my full stain, I still have the interferon gamma gate. And if I open up the relative plot for that, and I plot CD8 versus interferon gamma, now I see the gate. Now, in this condition, I do not have stimulation. This is, let's say, the basal expression of interferon gamma, or like low levels of interferon gamma. But when I stimulate the cells and I induce the production of interferon gamma, so if I go on to my next samples, I see that there is production of interferon gamma, and setting and using the FMO actually helped me to define where my true negative population ends and where my positive population starts. As you see, it's quite difficult to define where is the line, where to draw the line for our gates. So in this case, controls really help us a lot, okay? And you can do the same thing for the rest of the markers. I'm just going to do one more marker because I want to show you one other option that you have within FlowJo, so we don't make things really difficult, okay? So I have perforin right here, the FMO for perforin, so I can plot CD8 versus perforin. And as you can see in this case, I have my cloud of cells, my population of cells, quite squished together, okay? So sometimes you may need to add or transform your data, which means better visualize your data, okay? In FlowJo, you can transform the axis without transforming the data, without changing the data itself. So this will just help you to better visualize the populations. So in this case, if we want to make sure where our negative population ends, or we want to just have a better show of our cloud of cells, we can transform the axis. Of course, you can find all the videos on the FlowJo University. Remember that if you want to know more about it. But as an overview, I can show you how to transform the axis. Let's say that in this case, we want to make a kind of zoom around 0. We want to make this axis a little bit larger in a way that we can actually see where is the line, where we can draw the line for the negative populations. And so to transform the axis, I can just click on the T button right here. And this will help me either to go linear or logarithmic, so to change the scale, or to customize my axis. So I can click on Customize Axis. And right here, as I mentioned, you can change the scale from by exponential to linear to logarithmic. In this case, we need by exponential, that's fine. You can increase or decrease the negative and positive decades that you have on your plot, or you can actually change the width basis and spread a little bit the 0. Okay, now you see, I also see 10 to the second, so I've spread a little bit the area around 0. If I click apply, now I see this a little bit better, and I can generate my gate for perforin. Always double check with your PI or with people that are more experienced in your lab, which is their way of analyzing the data and drawing FMOs. I mean, BD also has like full repository of controls and videos on how to do that. We have really nice videos as well on the FlowJo website. Okay, so I can copy this one to the group as well, and then I can just use it under my CD8 to use it on my samples. Okay, now I have it also here. And the next thing could be maybe add some statistics to it. Okay, So let's say that I want to know what is the median fluorescence intensity, the MFI, for interferon gamma and perforin within my CD8 population. So I will need to have some statistics about that. And FlowJo has a full list of statistics that you can access. So if I go under my workspace right here, I have a full statistic tab, okay? So I can choose directly to add the median, the CV, or frequency of parent, grandparent, or total. Or if you want the full list, you can just click on Add Statistics. This will show you the entire list of statistics that are available within FlowJo. So in this case, I want to add my median. So I can just select the median within the CD8 population for which markers? For perforin and interferon gamma. Oops, I don't need CD38. You can add multiple statistics at the same time, and I can select Add and close. Now you see right here in the workspace, these are the median for perforin and interferon gamma, and even the statistics can be applied to the entire group. So you can just select them, right click, and copy analysis to group. So since now on, what's the advantage of working with groups is that if this afternoon, I process new samples and I want to analyze them with the same gating strategy, I can just add extra samples to this group and they will be automatically analyzed with my gating strategy right here. So this will make my life much easier and my way of analyzing data much faster compared to what I'm used to, okay? Now, we have our gating strategy, we have our statistics on, we may want to create a report for our analysis. I mean, we have looked at all the different gates and that's fine, but we may need to create a report of it. To create a report, you can access the layout editor. The layout editor is on the top of the left top of the screen. It's this L or ruler. And it's a white page, so nothing is in there until you drag and drop it into the layout editor. So basically, as you see, it's a white page. I really like to keep both pages next to each other because of the drag and drop need that I have. So I usually keep FlowJo on the left, the workspace on the left side, and the layout editor on the right side. You see FlowJo is saving all my changes, so I'm sure that nothing got lost. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, this is empty, so I will need to drag and drop something. So let's say that I want to drag and drop my interferon gamma or perforin. I will just take it from my workspace and drag and drop it on here, okay? Now, what you can do, if you look closer on the right side, there is this properties wing that opens and closes, and you can customize your plot. So you can increase, for example, the thickness of the line, you can make this line dot, you can change the color of the line, you can change the filling. Okay, this is probably not what we want. We want to do all the way around. Okay, something like this. You can also add a gradient, which makes things cooler. Okay, something like this. You can add a shadow, and so on. Once you decide the way you want to visualize your plot, you can proceed. So now we are looking at interferon gamma. Everything that is outside the plot can be edited by right-clicking. So I could duplicate this plot, okay? And instead of looking at interferon gamma, if you right-click on the name on the axis parameter, you can choose a different parameter. So this could be, for example, perforin, okay? Now, what else I can do? Of course, I want to see the entire gating strategy. I see, yes, I'm going to show you this in a second. In the chat, in the box, in the Q&A box, there is a question. Can I make an overlay of histograms and give each condition a different color? Yes. Just let me show you these first, and then we will move on to histograms in the last 5 minutes that we have, 5 to 7 minutes that we have. So I'm now seeing interferon gamma and perforin. These are the legends that I can remove. I can actually type my own text. If you want, you can select the A right here. This is a text box where you can insert any anything. You can type anything you want, or you can right click and you can insert annotations such as the date of today and keyword. So that's why I was pushing you to add keywords, because this will make everything nicer. So this is my first sample, and as a keyword, I want to add steam condition, and donor ID. Okay, donor 1, condition 1. Now, if I want to see the full gating strategy that brought me here, I can right click and I can select ancestry right here. The ancestry will show you the full gating strategy that brought you to find interferon gamma and perforin. So instead of dragging and dropping each individual population, we can just show the ancestry. The ancestry can be vertical or horizontal. And as you see, these are all page breaks, okay? These lines right here means this is page 1, this is page 2. Remember, you can always right click and use the scale to page option to bring everything to a single page, okay? Now, what else do I want to do? This is just for one sample, but luckily FlowJo did that for all of my samples in the group. So right here, you can see which group are you working on. You are on the full stain, okay? So if I iterate by sample, I can then see every sample in my workspace, in my group, okay? So this is done in the background, and this is possible because we were working with groups, we had keywords and so on. So strong advice, use groups and add keywords because they can help you a lot, okay? And can make your life easier. In case you want to create a report that includes all these informations, or you want to create a batch report, you can just click on create batch report. So this way, FlowJo will create exactly the same thing on a single document for all of the samples that you have in that group. Okay. Once you want to save either the batch or the layout, you see you can navigate from one to another right here. You can go onto file and you can export this image. You can export this image as PNG, JPEG, GIF, PDF, SVG, TIFF, depending on your needs. The TIFF one is the one with the highest quality. But if you want to ungroup, let's say, whatever you have on your plots, I suggest you to export it as an SVG and edit it in a vectorial software, which is not PowerPoint. Okay? I cannot make any claim for any other software, but PowerPoint is not a vectorial software that will allow you to ungroup things, okay? But in case you just need the document, you can save it as PNG, JPEG, PDF, TIFF, whatever, okay? Now, we have seen individual markers in individual conditions. Well, 2 markers in one condition. If we go on to the next one, we will see the next sample, 2 markers on one condition and so on. Going back to the question that I got, can you make an histogram overlay and assign different colors for each condition? First of all, to create a new layout, you will need to click on the plus button right here. This will create, add, let's say, a new layout to your page. And what you will need to do in that case will be taking everything that you want to overlay Okay, that I see another nice question, which is how can I save the analysis as protocol? I will cover that in a second. Let me show you just the histogram overlays. And this is true for any overlay. So if you want to overlay something within the workspace, you will need to drag and drop it, okay, on top of the other. So here I have interferon gamma in the first condition, interferon gamma in the second condition, in the third condition, and in the fourth condition, okay, for my donor one. Now, as you see, the overlay is like a lasagna. I'm Italian, so I like to make this similarities. You can change the order of your overlay. So whatever we brought first is all the way to the back, and whatever we added last is all the way in the front. So you can change the order by changing the order on your legend. So I can just move whatever I want in front of my overlay all the way up, okay? Here it is. And now we have a dot plot overlay, but we wanted a histogram overlay. So if I double click on this plot right here, I can choose the type of chart that I have, of plot or chart, and I can choose histogram, okay? So if I apply that, now I have a histogram. As you can see, the negative peaks are not all aligned. I can apply a sort of normalization to that and have all the negatives aligned by using on the y-axis the modal option. This will bring the first peak, the one that you have in the front, to fill to 100%, and then adjust all the rest. If I apply that, now they are all the same. I can click OK, but this is still not the kind of histogram overlay that I prefer. I can see that there are changes, but this is kind of messy. So I can right click on this overlay, and if I go all the way down, besides changing the level of coloring, the line style, and the line weight, I can go all the way down onto histograms right here, and I can choose to be offset. So now it starts to make some sense. Or I can go onto half offset, which is half overlaid, or the one that we mostly prefer, which is stagger offset, which is a kind of 3D way of showing you the histogram overlay. Now, to the following question, how do I change the colors? It's easier than it can be. So you can just click on the color that you want to change and select, I don't know, the darker color, the lighter color, whatever you prefer. Okay, now this is too light. Let me use this one. Okay. Now, in this case, honestly, I see this legend too small. If I double click on the plot, I can access, the fonts, and I can choose my legend to be bigger. Okay, now it's quite better. And I can do the same thing, right click and duplicate for perforing. Okay. Now, to the question, how do I save it? So first of all, let's finish out the layout editor topic. Okay, now we have plots, each individual samples that I can save as an export as an image. I have a batch for my individual samples. I have an overlay for my histograms overlay. Eventually, remember that you can always create batch either that on a new layout, you can create your batch on PowerPoint. So you can send it directly to PowerPoint, or you can create a batch in PDF, or you can create a web animation on a web page, and so on. Okay, and this is for the layout editor. And finally, let's say that I want to create a table with the statistics that I had. Okay. The table editor is right on top of the screen. Next to the layout editor is this grid right here. And it's exactly the same as the layout editor. It's empty. So it will ask you, what do you want to use to create your table? So Many people use then these data to create charts in extra softwares that can be Excel, for example, or I don't know, any other software to do that. So how do you create a table? Just access the table editor right here and then take everything that you want to add to the table. If you don't have specific statistics, automatically will load the frequency of parent. So if I load all these populations without any specific statistic that I added, I will have the frequency of parent of this right here. So this will be the list of whatever you want to have as a statistic within the table. And then, of course, you can change the order. You can bring this one on top. You can assign special names. And this will be my perf. This will be my IF and gamma. Okay. But this is still not a table. This is just a list of what I want. Yes, the recording will be available on the website in, I think, few hours or maybe tomorrow max. Okay. Okay. So now I have the list of statistics that I want, and I can create my table. Okay. So if I create the table, this will be a display table, which means that will be shown on my screen. Okay. And it's a black and white table. You can also make a heat map table by selecting everything and then under visualize, just click heat map. Go back to your table editor and create the table. Now I have a heat map table, which is much nicer, and it's still on display, which means that I'm showing it on my screen. And that's because when I create a table, I send it on display. But otherwise, you can send it to the current layout, for example, or you can copy to a clipboard and paste it somewhere else, or you can generate a file. This file can be a text file, a CSV, or an Excel file, HTML, and then you can load this file into extra softwares. Now, there was a question regarding creating or saving it as a protocol. Well, you can save it as a template. So to save your work within FlowJo, and this is the last step of our analysis, you can go onto the FlowJo icon right here, and you can select Save As. Save As will allow you to save it as a workspace, which means you will need to keep your FCS files on your computer or keep your FCS files in general, because FlowJo will create a connection to the files. So next time that you reopen the workspace, will reconnect to the files. You can save it on BD Research Cloud. As I mentioned before, you can generate your free account and you can have a minimum amount of storage on BD Research Cloud. So you don't need to save on your computer and then move things from one place to another. You can save it as an archive, which is a zip folder that also includes a copy of the FCS files, so you don't risk of losing them, or you can save it as a template. So going back to the question, how can I save it as a protocol? You can save it as a template, which means that all the gating strategy assigned to the group, this is crucial, you will need a gating strategy assigned to the group to save it as a template. All the layout editors set up will be there without the samples. So next time you just load the samples into the work, into the template, and the analysis is done automatically. Okay, now I saw some hands up, but unfortunately you cannot unmute yourself. So I'm asking you to type your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat. Okay. If there are questions, we already ran 3 minutes over. So I showed you really an overview of all the different functions for a basic analysis within FlowJo. But of course, you can deep dive into any of the specific functions by going onto the FlowJo University or onto the FlowJo documentation that we have available. And okay, so I will wait a few more minutes. If there is any question online, please feel free to ask me any question. It is your chance. I'm not frequently live because I'm mostly traveling, but I will also have another webinar in April, which is on quality control. So how to evaluate the quality of your samples and all the tools that we have available within FlowJo in the basic form and in the advanced with algorithms on how to check the quality of your samples. So if you want, sign up for that, or there are other webinars coming up this month and the beginning of next month. Okay, so is it possible to delete a gate? Yes, just click on the gate and hit cancel or delete on your screen, on your keyboard. Let's say I want to do this. Okay, I select my gate. So you need to have it selected and hit cancel or backspace on your keyboard. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for joining. Any other question? Thank you. Okay, so you will find the recording on the website under the Learn area, all the way down, recorded webinars. Just to... Could you explain the Disney? Dear Veronique, I would love to explain the Disney. It's are the topics that I love more, and I can invite you if you want. I gave a webinar. If you like my style, or if you understand me better, I gave a webinar a few months ago on beyond conventional analysis that shows different algorithms as Disney as well. So if you go on recorded webinars, you will find this one, beyond conventional data analysis, and this is all about Disney and clustering and UMaps and all the advanced features. Unfortunately, I cannot cover this in this webinar right here because it's an intro to FlowJo. All right. Okay, thank you all. And I'll see you next time if you sign up for my next webinar. Or I invite you to check out all the webinars that we have available on the website. Thank you and have a great week.